Okay, Mr. Phobes here again. I'm going to explain how to use the CMYK color worksheet in relationship to our split complement study and our analogous study. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to construct the geometry for the study, and then I'll go over the how to use the math. So what I've done is I've opened up a new file, and I have 3 artboards. You could do 4 artboards. I just left enough room so I can bring in my color wheel just for reference. You may not need it. I think it's handy for this discussion. Um, we want to make sure that when you open the file that you have your uh, color open, that you have layers open, and you have swatches and transparency open. Those are going to be useful tools. Okay, what I did was to start is construct 3 overlapping circles. The artboards are 8 by 10. These circles are 4 inches by 4 inches. I just used the um, shape tool and used the ellipse tool with the shift key and just entered 4 inches, and I overlapped them so they all overlap on their centers. The first 2 create the Vesica Pisces, and then the third one its center point corresponds to the intersection of the Vesica Pisces at the bottom here. So that gives us 3 relatively equal areas to work with. The other thing I did, you could do this with any color. I did it with black, and one of the things that I did is that I created the transparency to be at about 66%. This is going to be necessary to make this work. Okay, once I have this set up, what I need to do is make the entire project editable so I can create my 7 hues, and then eventually we'll create a ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the 3 overlapping circles, and then I'm going to go Object, Flatten Transparency, OK, and then very important, I have to go Object, Ungroup. What now this allows me to do is select each section as an individual editable section. Okay, so I'm going to do the split complement, and the split complement I'm going to use is blue, yellow, green, and orange. So if we scroll down, we can see them here: blue, yellow, green, and orange. Now this is a CMYK color circle. We've used it. It's divided into 24, and what's useful, it kind of shows the divisions between the primaries and the secondaries, and the intermediates. What we want to make sure that we use are what would be the 12 prismatic colors of the wheel. We're going to use the swatches to select the hues. So what I'll do first is select a section, and then I'll take the eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to go to CMYK blue. Now, all I have to do to make sure it's the right color is to look at the formula. We know from our color wheel that CMYK blue is made up of 100% magenta and 100% cyan. So that's our check. The next color I'm going to do is going to be orange. So I'm going to select the disc up here, and I'm going to go with my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to select the orange. Now we also know that this is correct because if we look at the formula for orange, we know it's 100% yellow and 50% magenta, so that's correct. The next one I'm going to do is the third disc, and that's going to be our yellow green. So I'm going to select the yellow green, and we look at the formula there, and it's 100% yellow and 50% cyan. And again, you can look at it's a little bit hard to see here, but if you look at the formulas, you can see them. They're on the color wheel here. So this is a nice double check. So we're doing it by the numbers. Okay. Now, the one thing we want to do though is this study really, especially when we do the analogous study, it really requires that we adjust the values. If we look at, we know the blue is naturally dark, but the yellow green and the yellow orange are rather close together. So what we want to do is we want to have one low key value, one mid key value, and one high key value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to add some black to it, and I'm going to make it a really easy number. I'm going to add 25K. And what that does is it just makes it a shade of blue. What I'm going to do to my yellow green is I'm going to subtract uh, some color out of it. I'm going to do that by hitting the shift key and then selecting any one of these sliders. And I'm going to adjust this so that I'm going to put my cyan at 25%. And that gives me 50% magenta. And I'm doing this because it's going to make the math a little bit easier. Okay, so there's our three hues. So now what we need to do is find the values of these overlapping sections. Now we could probably eyeball it, but we can do the math. So what we do is in our color worksheet, we have hue 1, hue 2, hue 3. So I'm going to say hue 1 is the blue, hue 2 is the yellow green, and hue 3 is the orange. Again, this is a shade of blue. Um, and a tint of yellow green, but the orange has remained prismatic. So I just select them and I can look at the numbers and I can write them in. So blue is 100% cyan and 100% magenta. The column to the right of that is if you want to do the analogous ones. So the column on the left is the split and the column on the right would be the analogous. Just to make this easier for the demonstration, we'll stick to the split complement. We'll select the yellow-green tint and we go up here and we see the formula. 50% yellow, 25% cyan, and there's no K in it. There's no black. And then we select the orange and then we see the formula. So that's how we start out. Now we have to do a little bit of math. So we want to know what is hue 4, which is going to be the shade of blue and the tint of yellow-green. So if we take the formulas that we've listed up here and we add them and we divide by 2, that's going to give us our average. So 125 divided by 2 is 62.5. 100 divided by 2 is 50. 50 divided by 2 is 25, and 25 divided by 2 is 12.5. So what I'm going to do is select this, and now I'm going to slide my sliders to the correct numbers. So my cyan needs to be 62.5. It's close. My magenta needs to be 50. My yellow will be 25. And there is a little bit of black in here, and that's 12.5. There you go. That's it. So that's the exact average between the two. So all we need to do now is go through and just do that to every single one. So I have the 3 according to the formulas. Now I have to do where they all overlap. And this would be, you could probably eyeball it, but it really makes sense. Now what we do is we take the formulas from the hue 4, from hue 5, and hue 6, and we put them in the calculator into the worksheet here. Here they are. We add them up and then we divide by 3. So here's the numbers that we get. We get 41.5, 50, 50, and 4. Now, just intuitively, this makes sense. If we had overlapping hues of all prismatics, this would have ended up being 50, 50, and 50, and 0. And it would have been a perfect gray or very, very dark gray. But it does have a little bit of, it's dominated by the uh, magenta and the yellow, and it has a little bit less cyan. So let's go ahead and do that one. And there we go. Now, the last thing we want to do, so we have 7 hues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need to create a ground, and the rule for our study is that the ground can be any tint, tone, or shade of any of the 7 hues. I know from experience that this works really well on a rather neutral ground, so I'm going to take this hue and I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. I'm going to hit the shift key, make it a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to eyeball a square around this. Actually, it's a rectangle. And then I'll go Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and there we go. Now I can mess around with this, and maybe I want to neutralize this a little bit more. So what I can do is maybe I want to add just a little bit more black to it. And that looks pretty good because now it's not so close to the value of this center area. Again, as you're working on your project, you can adjust that. Just a word about the analogous. This one is actually relatively easy to do and wouldn't necessarily require the calculations, because in our project we're going to do analogous colors that are next to each other, but we're also going to use colors that only share 2 primaries. That makes it really easy. I've used cyan blue, blue, and violet. So here we've got the cyan blue, the blue, and the violet. What's nice is that when you start mixing them together, you're going to start getting these hues in between. If you look at it, really, the only thing that's shifting around is the cyan and the magenta. So it's really pretty easy to do. This can be done pretty much by eye, and then you can add black to it, or obviously gray if you're adding it to the black. So I don't know if I would necessarily go through and do the worksheet for the analogous, but that's up to you. So that's it. Have fun with your CMYK color worksheet.